Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my May wrap up. By the time you're watching this will be Pride Month. This is my Ace Dragon shirt and my Ace bracelet that was made by Michelle of Thor Wants Another Letter. The flag in the background is intersex flag. I am not intersex. I got this flag from a P-Flag event that I was a vendor at. Nobody there was selling things. We were giving out information and things. What I and my friend were doing was we were giving out free watermelon and flyers telling people when to come to one of our local city halls where we were organizing people to call for a ceasefire resolution. But I support intersex people, so that's why we have that flag up there. One of these was an audiobook, one was an ebook, and the other two were physical books that already had to go back to the library, so I'll be showing you the covers up here. Let's start with In the Care of Magic. This is another book that I got from a Stuff Your Kindle for Plus Size Rep books. This is about a witch who decides she has had enough of the local villagers basically not appreciating her and taking advantage of her talents and pushing her to work way too much, and she's had trouble setting boundaries. So she decides to just close down her shop and move to her cottage in the woods that has been owned by her family. And she's going to take like a week to relax and garden and do hobbies instead of working constantly. And while she's there, she starts reading a few of the books that were left there by her grandmas and previous people in her family who lived there. And one of them is about sexual pleasure, and she finds in there a spell to summon a sex demon whose whole thing that they do is come and enjoy sex with whoever summons them, if they want to. They do have an option on whether to answer certain calls, but if they go too long being celibate, they will cease to exist. Some motivation besides pleasure of why they might want to answer these calls. So she goes ahead and summons this demon because she hasn't had sex in a long time, and trying to find someone in the local villages is not appealing to her. And she's also doesn't have much confidence because it's been such a long time. So she summons the demon. The demon is non-binary, uses Zazer pronouns. Specifically, Z is agender. So they have some fun times together. The spice was to my taste. And then they decide that they're going to have another night together. Lyle, I think, is the demon's name. And we start to learn about both characters a little more, especially about Lyle, because we had a bit of characterization of our witch character. And we learn that Lyle has also kind of felt unappreciated and used by the people who summoned them, and would be really interested in having a bit of a romance in addition to a sexual relationship. And our witch is not opposed to that. So, and is particularly not opposed to just caring about them while having the sexual relationship as well. So they start to get closer, and it's just a novella, but it's really cute and sweet, and I really enjoyed it. And I like how they help each other heal and grow in confidence. So I gave it 4.5 stars. Then Ruby Lost and Found is a story about grief. It is about Ruby, who is 12, I think, and has lost her yay, her grandfather, I think about 6 months to a year before. She is not handling it well. It's hitting her a lot harder than her other immediate family members. And as you go on to learn in the book, you realize that one of the reasons for that is that her parents have been super absent for at least a year because they've just started their own company, and apparently decided that since their youngest kid is 12, that their kids no longer need emotional, psychosocial support, and they can just pawn off the kid on the grandparents. Except they don't entirely rely on the grandparents to take care of their kid, because they don't realize that when Yeye dies, maybe there's a little bit of a problem there, because now no one cares about the kid. I was really angry at these parents for a lot of the book. They just had their priorities skewed, which a lot of parents do. A lot of parents don't realize that they don't get to be the center of the universe until their kids are grown. Until their last kid is grown, because their other kid is about 18 and is about to go to college. But she has to parent them, the older kid does, because they are arguing so much, they are causing strife in the whole household, and she tries to mediate between them because they're being so nasty to each other. It's one of those examples of you don't have to be abusive to be a shit parent. From the way that Ruby talks about her parents, it seems like they were relatively attentive before they started this business thing. So it sounds like basically they decided their kids were old enough they didn't need to pay attention to them anymore. And it's one thing if you recognize that the kid still needs someone and get support from grandparents or friends or aunts or uncles, but it's another thing if you get support from them and then when that support is no longer available, you don't do anything about it. Like when Yeye died, they just continued to ignore the child, and Grandma wasn't available either because she was sunk in her own grief and they knew she wasn't available, but they just continued to act as if their kids' social emotional needs didn't need to be met. And there's a huge difference between taking time for yourself and taking care of your own mental health and not making your entire life about your kid without putting your wants above your child's needs. Like, putting your needs above your child's wants makes sense, but putting your wants above your child's needs is a big no when they're still a kid. That was really upsetting, and the author framed it as upsetting and was very much not saying that that was okay. I think the author did a great job of exploring that, because it is a very common thing that parents do. Not necessarily in this exact way, but that generic theme of putting your wants above your child's needs is a pretty common thing, unfortunately. So I really liked how that was explored from the child's perspective, because like a lot of kids who this is aimed at, as it's a middle grade, will probably see themselves in Ruby. Another thing is there could have been a wake-up call at the beginning of the story for the parents when they found out that Ruby was breaking some rules at school. I believe the dialogue went like, "We know you're having a hard time," but then even though they knew that, instead of addressing the hard time and like maybe finding their kid a therapist, maybe finding someone else to love their child, something to address the grief she was feeling, they just addressed the behavior that came out of that grief by grounding her. Like, what? But at this point, Grandma has recovered well enough that she is able to take Ruby during the week. So Ruby starts spending time with her grandma, and she's not happy about it at first because she feels the distance that was created when her grandma went into her isolation from grief, and she feels like it's hard now to reach back out it's hard to reach back out to her, and she also harbors some anger at her grandma for not being there for her because there was no one else to be there for her. So it's hard for her to reconnect with her grandma, who she had been pretty close with. Grandma feels that distance, also is still dealing with grief even though it's not as bad as it was before. A lot of the time is spent with Ruby and Grandma going to the local senior center, which has a lot of other Chinese American people there, which is really nice for them to be able to connect with people. I think the whole story takes place in Chinatown, in San Francisco. In addition to meeting the other old ladies at the senior center, Ruby also meets someone named Liam, who is another grandchild of one of the senior center ladies. She also starts a campaign to try to save a local business which is a place that her grandfather loved, where he reunited with her grandma and where they spend a lot of time together, because she is very emotionally attached to this bakery and feels like with her grandpa gone and her sister going to college and everything being upturned, losing the bakery in addition to that feels like a really terrible blow. So she tries to save it. And that's really interesting because it ties into another one of the books that I read this month. I did end up liking the ending, everything surrounding Ruby's relationship with her grandma and the flashbacks you have to her relationship with her grandpa. So I ended up really enjoying it. It's a really good look at grief, and might be good for young people to read who are going through grief or who have had that in their past, because it talks about positive coping mechanisms and also negative ones, and about lashing out because of grief and overwhelm, and how you might do things that other people don't understand to try to process the grief that you have. So I gave it 5 stars. Those Pink Mountain Nights. Next, because this one has a teenage girl who is trying to save a local business. Once again, not because she really cares about the owner of the business, but because she has an emotional attachment to the place, and it kind of depends on the place for her psychological well-being. This is about some Indigenous kids in Canada who are from a variety of nations and tribes. They're going to high school, and it also talks about MMIWG2S, missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit, because a large thing that is weighing on everyone's minds is these women and girls who have gone missing, specific ones who are related to them. So one of our main characters, Cam, lost his aunt. She was murdered. No one was held to account for it. His cousin, Kiki, I think about 6 months ago, went missing. Then we have Jessie and Berlin. I think Jessie is white, but I'm not sure. Jessie is the daughter of the local rich people who own a ton of businesses. Had cancer when she was a little girl, and is not able to have babies because of that, and her parents resent her for that because they're shitty people. Her dad doesn't want her to have a job anywhere that he doesn't have control over, so when she goes to work at Pink Mountain Nights, at Pink Mountain Pizza, she kind of has to hide it from her dad. And then Berlin has recently lost her connection with her best friend. Her best friend ghosted her and she doesn't know why, and whenever she tries to contact her friend is really angry at her, and it doesn't make any sense. There's an explanation for that later in the book that I personally don't think makes sense. When you read in the author's note that this was somewhat based on the author's experience of having a friend ghost her and never finding out why, the fact that she made this really weird reason for it kind of makes sense. Berlin is the kid of some doctors and is very high achieving, and she thinks that anyone who doesn't do well in school must be lazy or a jerk or somehow have a moral problem rather than, say, a learning disability like Cam has. It sounds like he has dyslexia and maybe something else, the way he describes letters moving around when he's trying to spell things correctly. My dad has that, so that's one of the learning disabilities that I'm most familiar with. She learns that that is in fact not the case throughout the book, and we also get her parents telling her that that is not the case. Berlin also has depression and has a really hard time acknowledging that, and it seems maybe has also ascribed some morality to that, and is really scared of talking to her parents and going to a therapist about it. And partially also because she doesn't want to delve into the reasons for it. She's basically coping by avoiding thinking about it and distracting herself, which is a coping mechanism that I have used. But yeah, it is important to acknowledge that that is a thing, and we learn about that throughout the book. And Pink Mountain Nights is going to be sold soon by the owner, who is a black man, and he doesn't want to talk about why. He said that he's put in the contract to try to take care of the current employees so that they will continue to be employed by the next owners. But Berlin has felt relatively close to the owner, and she feels really hurt by this, and especially by that he won't talk about why, or like because she thinks that if he told her why, that maybe she could fix it and provide a different option. She sets out on a campaign to raise local ire that it's going to be sold, and get people to tell the owner, please don't sell. Except the way people respond to it, and in some ways the way that she phrased it, is that they don't say please don't sell, they say you're a bad person for selling. They don't say, oh, we love Pink Mountain Nights so much, we'll miss it. They say you're a sellout and all these nasty things to this black man, and the author uses that to talk about in the insidiousness of anti-blackness and how it can exist in Native communities as well as amongst white people. And meanwhile, we are all wondering what happened to Kiki, and afraid that she has died, and hoping that she's alive, but knowing that if she is alive, she's probably being trafficked or abused or something. It's made clear to an extent who did the thing to her fairly early on, because we get to see some journal entries from her at like the third waypoint. So for me, that pretty much cleared up who it was, at least generally who it was and who it wasn't. But our main characters didn't have access to those journal entries, so they don't figure it out right away. But yeah, I think it was really good, and I really like the author's note kind of breaking down some of the themes that were talked about in the book. So I gave it 5 stars. And then what's the last one? Con mucho amor. This is a picture book. It's in Spanish, and I was hoping I would understand most of it, and I did understand most of it, especially with the aid of the pictures. It is all about a young girl who used to live with her grandma. I've forgotten in which country, but it's a Spanish-speaking one. And she now lives in the US. And the different pages talk about the different things she misses about living with her grandma and her cousins, and she misses the store that her grandma would run, and the food that her grandma would make, and how they would look at the stars together, and the piñatas that her grandma would make. And then in the second half, it goes into her receiving a package from her grandma. So I really liked it. It was really, really sweet, and I think a really good tool for helping kids process if they have moved away from grandma or someone else in another country, or even in another city that they can't see all the time anymore, that they miss, and give them a few coping mechanisms for that. And give them an opportunity to talk about the different things that they miss about that person or that place. So I really liked it. 5 stars. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which should be a Pride reading vlog, which will be LGBTQ IA plus books, as well as a few Pride events that I might be able to. Bye!